break that tie with Incineroar and Cresselia and everybody else. This is a big deal.
It's a big deal indeed, and these trainers are ready and raring to go. This is our top 4 match here at Worlds, and there's that Amoonguss.
Yeah, of course, you can't come to the World Championships and not see an Amoonguss on game 1. Turn 1 here. Yuta Ishigaki with the Calyrex Ice Rider next to that mushroom. Compared to Michael Kelsch, Fluttermane and Chien-Pao was his lead.
This is going to use the booster energy to boost the speed of that Fluttermane, but honestly, it would have been one of the fastest Pokemon on the field regardless in this position. While Fluttermane could go on the offense here, try to target down a Shadow Ball against the opposing Calyrex Ice Rider, there is no way here, thanks to the presence of that Amoonguss, for Michael to land both a Shadow Ball and a secondary attack to guarantee the KO on that Calyrex Ice Rider to stop a potential Trick Room. So if Yuta loves Trick Room, Yuta wants Trick Room, this is the turn to go for it.
Yeah, you better prove your worth if you really do want to be known as the biggest Trick Room fan out there, because there's many people that would like to take their claim to that fame. Yuta does not swap either of his Pokemon. He will Terrestrialize Amoonguss on turn 1 into a Terra Fire. You usually see Terra Water as the terrestrialization choice, most common on Amoonguss, but this time around Yuta actually opting to go for Terra Fire, resisting potential Icicle Crash on the other end. Michael does not fall for it, however, with his Chien-Pao protecting. Urshifu's gotten onto the field for free without taking any damage, and now Calyrex gets to click Trick Room, twisting those dimensions. These slow Pokemon will be moving first for the next 4 turns.
An amazing adjustment, though, from Michael, correctly recognizing that the Urshifu is the perfect counter for this Amoonguss. While it is holding Rocky Helmet, it has turned itself into a fire type, and the Urshifu is also holding safety goggles, so there's nothing stopping a Surging Strikes here from picking up that KO.
You don't often see the Pokemon that loves Trick Room to switch out as it's set up, but Calyrex Ice Rider does swap on this turn into the Pelipper, setting up the rain thanks to his Drizzle ability. Pelipper, everybody fell in love with Pelipper at the end of NAIC with Patrick Connor's team. Let's see if Pelipper can help Yuta get to the finals. With the rain being set, you might as well Terra Urshifu into the water type, getting additional boosted water damage from his Surging Strikes. The Sucker Punch doesn't work since he swapped out, so a great call from Yuta. And now Amoonguss puts Chien-Pao to sleep. It will be forced to sleep next turn, that first mandatory turn of sleep. Where's the Surging Strikes go? It goes into the Pelipper, the water type. That's going to be resisted, but because of the Terra and the rain being set up, it sure doesn't feel like it, Gabby.
It doesn't feel like it, indeed, but that Pelipper has enough HP to hold on for another turn, and honestly, that aligns with how Yuta has approached using this Pokemon in the past. He made an adjustment coming into this tournament by giving Life Orb to that Pelipper so that its attacks would be slightly more powerful, and when you're facing down against an Urshifu who has lost its weakness to any flying type attacks, I think a potential Hurricane here could be huge. Amoonguss can still try and provide a little bit of support here. It does have Pollen Puff as an attack, but there will be no target on the field as Aqua Jet into that Pelipper is a KO.
Yuta nodding his head as he saw the Aqua Jet being animation. There's understanding, solid play from Michael to get that KO. Pelipper is down before getting any attacks off here in game 1. Pollen Puff, though, on the offensive into Chien-Pao to bring that down to under half HP. Chien-Pao did use its first turn of sleep there, so there is the possibility that it can wake up next turn.
Interestingly enough, though, Yuta sends in his own Urshifu in this position, opting to keep the Calyrex in the back of his party, and I think more importantly, sending in a Pokemon that doesn't necessarily benefit from the Twisted Dimensions. If this Urshifu is trained to be slightly slower, slightly bulkier, it's possible that Yuta is anticipating that it would be able to move first and put some pressure down onto the opposing Urshifu on the other side of the field. But still, you have to wonder, why didn't he send that Calyrex Ice Rider back out? I don't think he wants to lose it yet.
And you would think, even if Urshifu's not slower than the other version, at least it is inherently slower than Chien-Pao.
Exactly.
So on Yuta's end, thinking that you would be moving before Chien-Pao. However, Michael has smartly swapped that Pokemon out, and this Amoonguss, Terrafire Amoonguss, never stood a chance against Terra Water Surging Strikes from the Urshifu. You really don't see this too often in VGC.
And interestingly enough, we do see Michael's own Urshifu attack first there, so that is a great indication on how these Pokemon are trained for both of these trainers.
Yeah, so that Zamazenta has gotten onto the field. Now it's all up to Yuta in his adjustments with his last two Pokemon. It's the close combat into the water type. It is enough. Maybe he needed the Pollen Puff on the double target to secure the KO, but he has, because he's down to his last two Pokemon, Yuta's no longer able to swap out and reset those stat drops.
And more importantly, there's none of those options we were talking about during team preview to try and pin the options available to the Zamazenta, which is now on the field. Zamazenta will be taking decent amount of damage from a rain-boosted Surging Strikes. Calyrex Ice Rider, I think, almost forced to go for high horsepower in this situation because you don't want to risk being caught off guard by a wide guard and having 0 damage done for the entirety of this match. But given that one Pokemon is going to be wide guarding, I almost feel like whatever Pokemon Michael sends in here, it's going to be that Flutter Mane. Will have a great opportunity, is still at full health as well, to target down either of these Pokemon. And, you know, as another cherry on top, because the booster energy already was used on that Flutter Mane, there is no speed boost to make it even slower during the remainder of this Trick Room.
Yeah, Yuta in a really tough spot right here in game one. Michael Kelsch has been playing perfectly through these Trick Room turns. We'll see if Yuta can turn the tides of this battle down 2 to 3 in the Pokemon count. Zamazenta hasn't really been able to do too much. It's been kind of more of a moral support coach so far for game one of Michael Zen, but it's still working out.
And that's all Zamazenta has to do in this matchup, as it's such a difficult Pokemon for Calyrex Ice Rider to take down.
Surging Strikes into the Flutter Mane is going to be a 3-hit KO. Obviously, Flutter Mane not bulky enough to take those hits. So the classic 3-hit, 1-hit KO we all love to see from Surging Strikes or Shifu. Zamazenta took that attack actually relatively well.
Yes.
So really tough for Yuta. And the body press brings Urshifu down to its Focus Sash. Remember, it had the defense dropped from the prior close combat. Now the Twisted Dimensions have returned to normal, and Michael's 2 super speedy Pokemon are in the advantage.
But Chen Pao is still asleep and is not guaranteed to wake up this turn. So Chen Pao, if it does wake up, should be able to pick up the KO on that Urshifu. And then it's just the Zamazenta facing down the opposing Calyrex Ice Rider. Calyrex Ice Rider is going to need at least 2 more high horsepowers. Obviously, a critical hit would change that just a little bit, but not by much, in order to pick up the KO on that Pokemon. So Michael is still in a very comfortable position, assuming that the Chen Pao can wake up, but it stays asleep.
It will stay asleep. No attacks from Chen Pao here in game one, and the Aqua Jet priority attack gets the KO. Michael down to just the Zamazenta in a 2v1 situation. Body press though, no Sword of Ruin on the field means that's not even a 2-hit KO. And the high horsepower plus future Surging Strikes from Yuta's Urshifu on his end should be more than enough to take down Zamazenta.
I am a little bit curious to see just how much damage that this Urshifu could do to Zamazenta for a Game 2 situation, but Yuta making a great prediction there, using D-Tech to stop the KO on that Pokemon, giving Calyrex Ice Rider the opportunity to set up Trick Room. Now this Calyrex Ice Rider will be able to attack into this Zamazenta the 2 times it would need to pick up that KO, and we see Michael go ahead and click forfeit, giving Yuta this game number 1.
The second Trick Room turns out to be the charm, as that was the checkmate for Yuta Ishigaki. 1 victory away from moving on to Championship Sunday here in Honolulu. You saw it on Michael's face those last couple of turns. Yuta just reading him like a book, trying to just surviving those Trick Room turns and also getting the benefit of Chen Pao staying asleep.
That being said, though, it did feel like a great call from Yuta to go for that second Trick Room. A lot of times trainers will be tempted to go for big, damage. I get the KO, it's 2v1, but using that second Trick Room just guaranteed that regardless of which Pokemon Michael chose to target with his next attack, there would be 2 more attacks remaining, which would guarantee enough damage. So Yuta correctly identifying that to lock in the win condition, he didn't just need to attack. He needed to ensure that he could attack in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a back and forth match. I really did think Michael had control through the Trick Room turns because it felt like Yuta was on the back foot. He sets up Trick Room and then swaps out Calyrex Ice Rider immediately. And you think, okay, well, as long as the big bad Restricted's not on the field and not taking advantage of Trick Room, I feel like, you know, making a little positive run. But the Fluttermane never really got to do anything. Chien Pao stayed asleep through the whole game, and Yuta slowly but surely brought the game back.
That Fluttermane was such a threat initially too, right? Had it been able to connect an attack against the opposing Calyrex Ice Rider, we would be looking at a much different game. So thinking back to that turn number 1, I think one of the adjustments that Michael has to be thinking about is bringing a different Pokemon that could perhaps check the fire type Amoonguss, check that Calyrex Ice Rider better. And looking at it, this team sheet, you know that is the Entei. It has to be lurking in the back of his party for this game number 2 if he doesn't just lead it outright.
Well, Entei was so crucial in that top 8 set against Diego, and you understand, I would imagine Entei's been pretty darn important throughout the entire weekend here in Honolulu. It just provides so much damage and such a great Pokemon. So we'll see if Michael can make any adjustments. Will he force a game 3, or will he be watching the finals with us tomorrow after this game? Amoonguss Calyrex Ice Rider for Yuta compared to Urshifu Chien Pao on Michael's end.
Unlike the previous game, though, Michael can find an early knockout here against the Amoonguss. This Chien Pao has access to Sucker Punch, sure, but it also is running Throat Chop and Icicle Crash. Not the most accurate move in the world, but if the Amoonguss does not terrastalize, Icicle Crash plus any damage from that Urshifu will pick up the KO, and that's exactly what we see. It connects.
No Terra, no problem, but no one hit either. It hangs on with just barely enough hit points so that this Surging Strikes will go and hit twice into Amoonguss. That is 2 ticks of Rocky Helmet. Who knows how crucial that is going to be later on in this game too. However, that means Calyrex Ice Rider has not been attacked on this turn. Yuta, the Trick Room lover, sets it up turn 1 of game 1 and sets it up again turn 1 of game 2.
Really living up to his reputation, and I gotta give a shout out for that. Calyrex Ice Rider is probably one of the most popular Trick Room Pokemon in the metagame right now, and Yuta showcasing exactly why it is so strong. Yuta has 4 turns now to take advantage of the Twisted Dimension to deal enough damage to power his way through this matchup once again, and knowing that he doesn't have the Amoonguss available to him anymore, the Pelipper in this position certainly has a little bit more playability than what we saw in the previous game, where it just switched in, took some damage, and then was KO'd. Could go for a Hurricane into the opposing Urshifu. It has not terastalized away from that weakness yet. Could also try and just double down on this Chien Pao, which will be immediately denied thanks to that Protect.
Chien Pao in a really tough spot. Since it's such a fast Pokemon, that means it's going to be moving the slowest under the Trick Room, under these Twisted Dimensions. Glacial Lance is not going to hit it. The Urshifu resists, but it doesn't look like it apparently, thanks to that critical hit. Urshifu in the red, but the Weather Ball goes towards Chien Pao's Protect, so Michael is not going to lose his Pokemon on this turn. The Surging Strikes with the resisted hits, but the rain is up. Remember, there's no Terra Water this time around, so Urshifu's doing significantly less damage.
Even still, though, we saw that Urshifu terastalize in game number 1, and it still wasn't enough damage to pick up the KO on that Pelipper. This is a great opportunity for Yuta to once again go for the Glacial Lance, go for an attack onto that Chien Pao, and as long as you're confident you can take a Swords of Ruin Sucker Punch into that Calyrex Ice Rider, you're going to be in a great spot. We saw Yuta early on in game 1 go for the terastalization on that Amoonguss to open up the opportunity for Trick Room. I think if Yuta is seriously considering the Chien Pao as the #1 threat right now, you Trick Room, or you terastalize this turn, you don't take super effective damage from Sucker Punch, you get that KO, and then you have the ability to resist the opposing Urshifu. But Michael did bring Entei, and while Yuta's the first person to switch, he won't be the only person to switch this turn.
Pelipper swapping into Urshifu in this slot. Michael can only Sucker Punch 1 slot on Yuta's end. Did he make the right call? As his own Urshifu will leave the battlefield so Entei can join the fray. The Sucker Punch is into the Pelipper slot that swapped out. Chien Pao does no damage. Its Glacial Lance is going to hit both of them, not doing too much damage, but importantly, breaking that sash.
And I think importantly as well, Entei is in a position where it cannot protect this turn because it has that choice band item. So Michael could try and get through Trick Room like many trainers do. You just rely on your priority attacks, maybe the combination of a Terra normal extreme speed and a sucker punch to pick up the KO on has to be the Urshifu on the opposing side of the field, but that still will allow this Calyrex Ice Rider to deal some good damage with the Glacial Lance. Yuta still has time to find a way through the rest of this matchup, and look at the concentration on his face. This is going to be a very important turn. We'll see how they read it.
There are some Pokemon that don't care about whatever dimensions the games are in because you have priority attacks. And so Urshifu has Aqua Jet, Chien-Pao has Sucker Punch, but this Entei has extreme speed, higher priority attack than those other priority moves.
Yeah, extreme speed is guaranteed to go first. So while we will see both these trainers lock in their terrestrialization this turn, Entei will be attacking next. Big question though, Joe, who's the target and how much damage is it gonna do?
We'll see. Remember, it is the Sword of Ruin ability boosting the damage from this choice band. Terra normal extreme speed into Urshifu, but not enough. Brings it down into the red, and now rain boosted Aqua Jet with the critical hit. Chien-Pao is out here in game 2. Michael down to his last 3 Pokemon remaining. That was a normal type. Glacial Lance is both single target and no longer resisted, so Entei is gone.
Calyrex Ice Rider is going to benefit from that attack boost as well when its Chilling Neigh ability activates. That's exactly the kind of boost it's going to need as they were going into the end game here of this game number 2. Urshifu on Michael's side of the field holding on with just a little bit of health left. And the Zamazenta, the Pokemon that has brought Michael so many accomplishments this season, still at full health. His final Pokemon to be revealed in this game 2.
Yeah, Zamazenta is his last hope of forcing a game 3. Remember, Yuta still has the Pelipper in the back, so he's gonna have to take out 3 Pokemon compared to his 2, especially the low health Urshifu remaining not long for the rest of this match because Glacial Lance will be able to knock it out.
Yeah, this is a tough decision still. There is a wide guard present for the Zamazenta, and we saw Yuta, as soon as wide guard was on the field in game number 1, pivoted immediately to only using high horsepower to deal damage. And you would think that the Calyrex Ice Rider would love to go for that Glacial Lance to pick up the KO on the Urshifu.
You gotta go for the speed tie. This is the last turn of Trick Room. If your Aqua Jet can move first, and Michael gets it into the Urshifu on the other end. That's the first key to coming back in this game. Now, because of wide guard, Glacial Lance cannot do any damage. It prevents the spread attacks, but he goes for high horsepower. He calls it right. Michael giving him credit, and Yuta is 1 knockout away from the finals.
Now at +2 attack on that Calyrex Ice Rider, and we saw how much damage the high horsepowers did in game number 1. You know that this is going to be dealing a significant amount of damage to the Zamazenta. The big question is, though, will it be able to take out the Pelipper? And it misses!
It hangs on. Pelipper is so clutch for Yuta. Here's the rain-boosted Weather Ball into Zamazenta, bringing it down to under half HP. And the Calyrex Ice Rider, the Pokemon that's gotten Yuta this far, his restricted Pokemon of choice, will set up Trick Room and next turn end it.
Trick Room is now back on the field. Calyrex Ice Rider is in the driver's seat. All Yuta has to do is land an attack against this Zamazenta, and he will be moving on. We'll be taking a moment to play out these Protect turns. It's a good time to recap. First Protect guaranteed, second Protect a 50-50, third Protect roughly a 30% chance, and we'll see if we even make it that far.
I think it needs I don't know if I've ever seen a quadruple Protect. Doesn't even go for it. And Yuta with the victory. It's going to be Italy versus Japan on Championship Sunday. Yuta Ishigaki twists the dimensions all the way to the finals.
He loves Trick Room, and you can see why. On paper, Zamazenta is one of the toughest matchups for Calyrex Ice Riders players to compete against because you just struggle to deal damage to it. I mean, we saw how much damage those high horsepowers did without any attack boost in game number 1. Glacial Lance would be resisted there. It's just a tough matchup to navigate on paper, but Yuta able to commit to using Trick Room turn 1 of both those games, find the openings for the Calyrex Ice Rider, and ride it all the way to victory.
I'd absolutely love to know just how defensive Yuta's team is. Of course, one of the huge benefits, Gabby, that trainers who use Trick Room and they